She fired the quiet single dad in front of everyone, then froze at what he left on his desk. Victoria Kingsley had never regretted firing anyone, until the morning she fired Evan Rourke in front of the entire executive floor. The quiet single dad stood beside his desk with his hands folded calmly, while Victoria accused him of being slow, unambitious, and no longer useful to Kingsley Holdings. Evan didn't argue. He simply looked once at the small photograph of his 8-year-old daughter taped beside his monitor, quietly packed his things, and walked away. But 10 minutes after he left, Victoria returned to his desk to sign his termination papers. That was when she saw what Evan had deliberately left behind, and the color slowly drained from her face. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still matters, people deserve second chances, and a good heart should never be judged by someone's position or paycheck, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to SoulTales for more emotional stories of kindness, courage, and second chances. Evan Rourke had never been the employee who demanded attention. For 6 years, he arrived before almost everyone else, made his coffee in the quiet break room, finished his assignments, and left exactly on time because his daughter Lily was waiting for him at home. He was 37, raising Lily alone after losing his wife several years earlier, and every decision he made revolved around giving his daughter a stable childhood. He wore the same few carefully pressed shirts each week, drove an aging sedan that sometimes refused to start, and kept a tiny drawing Lily had made inside his wallet. At Kingsley Holdings, people often mistook his silence for weakness. What they didn't know was that Evan had once been one of the most important people behind the company's foundation. Victoria Kingsley had become CEO after her father, Richard Kingsley, suffered a serious illness and stepped away from daily operations. She was brilliant, ambitious, and determined to prove that she deserved the position. But Victoria had one weakness. She judged people by visible performance and immediate results. Evan's quiet nature frustrated her. He never volunteered for unnecessary meetings, never stayed late just to impress executives, and never competed for promotions. To Victoria, that looked like a lack of ambition. She didn't know that Evan regularly declined overtime because Lily had already spent too many evenings waiting alone for her father to come home. Over the previous month, Victoria had been pushing the company through an aggressive restructuring plan. Departments were being cut, employees were being pressured, and anyone who didn't appear essential was placed under review. Evan's name landed on her desk. His supervisor described him as reliable but quiet. Victoria interpreted the words differently. She saw him as replaceable. So one Monday morning, she walked onto the executive floor and called Evan into the center of the office. Everyone became silent as Victoria told him that Kingsley Holdings needed people with more drive and that his position was being eliminated immediately. Evan stood there while dozens of employees watched. His face remained calm, but inside, his stomach tightened. He thought about Lily's school fees, the overdue electricity bill at home, and the medicine he needed to pick up for his daughter's recurring asthma. Still, Evan refused to beg. He thanked Victoria for the opportunity and returned to his desk. He carefully placed his laptop in its case, removed Lily's photograph, and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a small black metal card, an old envelope, and a worn silver key. Evan looked at them for several seconds before closing the drawer. Then he took the envelope and key, but left the black metal card behind. He placed it beneath a folder and walked away. Victoria watched him disappear through the glass doors. For a moment, she felt victorious. She believed she had made a difficult but necessary decision. Then she returned to her office and noticed something unusual. Her assistant had left a message saying that Evan's termination had triggered a security review because his employee file contained an authorization she had never seen before. Victoria frowned and ordered the records department to explain it. Instead, they sent back a single sentence that made her uneasy. Evan Rourke was not listed as an ordinary employee in the company's original corporate archive. Victoria immediately walked to his desk. She searched through the remaining folders, expecting to find nothing important. Instead, beneath a stack of routine reports, she discovered the small black metal card. It wasn't a bank card or an access badge. On one side was the original Kingsley Holdings emblem, the one the company had stopped using decades earlier. On the other side were 4 engraved words, Founders Emergency Authority. Victoria froze. She turned the card over again, hoping she had misunderstood it. Then she found a sealed document underneath the folder. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The document carried her father's original signature. It stated that after the company experienced a devastating financial crisis years ago, Richard Kingsley had created a confidential emergency authority entrusted to one person outside the executive board. That person had the power to intervene if company leadership ever endangered the employees, the company's finances, or its future. The name beneath the signature was Evan Rourke. Victoria stared at the page, unable to breathe normally. She remembered her father mentioning Evan years ago. He had once told her that a young financial analyst had saved the company from collapse by discovering fraudulent contracts hidden inside a major acquisition. Victoria had assumed the story was about some senior executive. She had never imagined it was Evan, the quiet man she had just fired in front of everyone. Then she discovered something even more painful. Evan had never used the authority. Not once. For 6 years, he had worked under her leadership without telling her who he really was. He had watched Victoria make mistakes, struggle after her father stepped away, and carry the enormous pressure of running a company she desperately wanted to prove she could lead. He could have exposed his authority at any time. Instead, he stayed quiet because her father had asked him to give Victoria the chance to lead on her own. Victoria sat down at Evan's empty desk. For the first time that morning, she noticed the little details she had ignored. The repaired family photograph. The inexpensive lunch container. The handwritten reminder beside his monitor that said, Lily's school presentation, 6 p.m. She realized that while she had been judging Evan for leaving work on time, he had been choosing his daughter. While she had called him unambitious, he had been sacrificing his career opportunities for the one person who depended entirely on him. Then the security director arrived with another message. Evan had not activated the founder's emergency authority after being fired. Instead, he had simply walked away. That broke something inside Victoria. She rushed downstairs and found Evan outside the building, standing beside his old car. He was holding Lily's backpack because he had promised to pick her up from school. Victoria approached him, but this time she didn't speak like a CEO. She spoke like a daughter who had finally understood what her father had trusted her to protect. She apologized. Evan listened quietly. He didn't immediately forgive her. He told her that losing his job was frightening, but being judged as worthless in front of everyone had hurt far more. He explained that people often assume quiet people have nothing to say when sometimes they simply have too much responsibility to waste their energy proving themselves. Victoria admitted that she had been so focused on becoming a powerful CEO that she had forgotten what leadership was supposed to mean. She asked Evan to return, not as an ordinary employee, but as an advisor with full authority to protect the people and values her father had built the company upon. Evan looked toward the school across the street, where Lily was waiting behind the gates. He finally agreed, but with one condition: no employee should ever again be humiliated simply because they were struggling, quiet, or unable to stay late. Victoria accepted. Months later, Kingsley Holdings became a different company. Victoria changed the restructuring program, restored several positions, created flexible schedules for parents, and established an employee support fund. Evan never became loud or flashy. He still arrived early, still left when Lily needed him, and still kept that little drawing beside his monitor. But now everyone knew something they had once failed to see. Quiet did not mean powerless. And a simple life did not mean an unimportant life. Sometimes the person standing silently at the edge of the room is carrying a responsibility greater than anyone can imagine. If this story touched your heart, please support the video with a like, share it with someone who deserves a second chance, and subscribe to SoulTales. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need their message more than we realize. And before we end, I want you to answer one question in the comments. If you were Evan, would you have forgiven Victoria after what she did? Evan never wanted revenge. He could have used the authority his father had trusted him with to destroy Victoria's career, but he chose something harder. He chose to give her the same second chance she had once refused to give him. Because sometimes real strength is not about how much power you have. It is about how gently you choose to use it. And from that day forward, whenever Victoria passed Evan's desk, she never saw an unambitious employee again. She saw the quiet single father who had reminded her that leadership was not about standing above people. It was about remembering that every person beneath you has a story you may never have taken the time to understand.